And said one thing about Trump that will leave jaws hanging. President Trump has been taking heat lately for not announcing a comprehensive military plan in Afghanistan, but one guy has his back. Yeah, right. National Security Advisor H.R. Mcmaster defended President Trump in an interview with MSNBC on Saturday, saying, "The president already made some important decisions on Afghanistan." McMaster, however, emphasized that the president is not interested in announcing his strategic plans. "We're not going to talk tactics anymore, right? Everything before was, troop levels and very specific details announcing to the enemy years in advance exactly the number of troops we're going to have, exactly what we're going to do and what they're not going to do." And so the president had said that it's not the way to fight a war. It never has been. This is an invention of recent years. Boom. Seriously? It never made any sense to broadcast so much of our military strategy on national television? McMaster said that now they are no longer doing that. They have seen tremendous success in the region. There's a tremendously successful campaign going on with Afghan forces in the lead. It's an unreported campaign in Nangarhar province of Afghanistan. McMaster also praised the president's decision to let the Pentagon lead the military campaign, saying, "The president has said that he does not want to place restrictions on the military that undermine our ability to win battles in combat. He has lifted those restrictions, and you're beginning to see the payoff on that as well." Excuse me? So in other words, they cornered the president to go along with their strategies in Afghanistan that's been going on for God knows how long in order to save the CIA's poppy fields, right? Because it's a billion-dollar business there. That's all this is. What are they trying to do? You think the American people are stupid? And now, so what do you mean? So in other words, for him to be praising Trump means that Trump's going along with it because Trump is cornered now by the CIA. McMaster's interview puts to rest rumors of President Trump's incompetence. Yeah, because he's going along with this charade. According to McMaster, the Afghanistan fight is going better than ever before, and it is in large part because of President Trump's leadership. Do you see what's going on now, right? Now they're praising him because Trump is going back on what he wanted to do, to take the troops out from Afghanistan. We're fighting what? Isn't it great to have a real leader in charge who knows how to win? Yeah, he does know how to win, but if people are in power, the deep state, I mean, really? Let's take a quick listen. I'm not going to listen to his whole interview, this
My
idiot.
guest this morning is in many headlines right now.
Yeah, okay.
I'm grateful for the work he continues to do serving our country. So what does General McMaster think, and what sort of advice is he giving to the president? I sat down with him midweek for a wide-ranging interview. Later in the program,
he just looks so evil.
Bloomberg's Eli Lake, who McMaster's critics are, and why they are so indifferent to the president's views about McMaster. But first, the interview. Our first two subjects are the crisis in Venezuela and the challenges posed by Iran, specifically the Obama administration's nuclear deal with Iran. Here's the beginning of that interview. Your old friend Uncle James Stavridis said on my show on Wednesday, there's going to be a violent civil war, there's going to be massive refugees, and any military intervention in that country would have to come from Colombia and or Brazil. Do you agree with those three assessments?
Well, I think his assessment is right, that democracy's over right now in Venezuela. People have talked about could there be a coup? Well, there's already really been a coup that has happened already. Maduro has prevented the Venezuelan people from having a say in their own future. And so with the seating of this Constituent Assembly, it is a watershed, and it's a tragedy for the Venezuelan people who are suffering.
Do they honestly care about the Venezuelan people? Do they honestly care about democracy? Do you see the hypocrisy that's going on in our government today? I mean, it's disturbing to say the least. They could care less who dies and who lives, believe me. They could care less. I mean, I was never really into politics till recently, believe me. This is totally crazy. I can't even believe what I'm listening to.
As of depredations based on the failed policies of two regimes now, and it's really a situation that's intolerable from the Venezuelan people's perspective. And so, what we're endeavoring to do is to work.
And I put up a video with Julian Assange giving us a warning that if the people don't stand up to these corrupt people, that we will wind up like Venezuela, because that's what their intention is.
With partners in the region, and to work on behalf of the Venezuelan people to help rescue them from this dictatorship.
Do you see military intervention from any outside source?
No, I don't think so. I think what's really required is for everyone to have one voice about the need to protect the rights and the safety of the Venezuelan people.
If there isn't an intervention, General, does Maduro possess the potential to become a new Castro, but one even more dangerous than Castro was in '62 when the Soviets put missiles there? It's a bigger country, it's a richer country.
So there are big consequences, obviously, mainly for the Venezuelan people. But there are consequences for security in the region as well. And so we know that he's drawing very heavily, Maduro's drawing very heavily on support from the Cubans. He's also...
Listen how well-spoken he is and how nice he sounds, like he really cares. This is the facade. Because if you see Loretta Lynch when she speaks, oh, she speaks so sweet, so softly. You know you get what I'm saying, right? They're liars.
The Chinese and the Russians underwriting this failed regime, this authoritarian.
That's what the CIA does. They want to invade countries and take over their resources. This is all that it is.
Dictatorship now. And so there are regional security implications, as well as we already see every day, devastating consequences for the Venezuelan people.
Venezuela also has a long history with Iran, and there are reports that Iran has back and forth with them. Any idea if the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps Quds forces is in Venezuela?
Well, it wouldn't be surprising. I know, of course, their priorities are elsewhere. What they've done to really light the Middle East on fire, to flame this very destructive cycle of sectarian violence in the Middle East. I mean, that's what I think we have to hold the IRGC accountable for. Pull the curtain back on their subversive activities across the greater Middle East.
The reason I bring them up is because if there are revolts in the street on Sunday and beyond, when the Green Movement occurred in 2009, the besieged IRGC were ruthless. They just cut it down. Would you expect Maduro's government to do the same thing with demonstrations?
Well, he's already doing it, right? I mean, they're already brutally repressing the Venezuelan people. And you've seen this with these gangs of thugs. Typically, these are the sorts of organizations that are used. Legitimate security forces are a tool of profession. They use security forces as a tool of oppression. But even what you're seeing become more and more likely and more Routine is the use of these sort of gangs of thugs as an extension of a repressive or authoritarian regime. You see this in Iran in the form of what's called the besiege, right? You see this with these gangs of thugs in Venezuela as well.
Do you want to rule out completely? Does the president rule out completely, no matter what the situation is, pulling a Panama, as President George Herbert Walker Bush did?
Well, you know, there's a long history in the region of American intervention, and that's caused problems in the past. And so I think that we're very cognizant of the fact that we don't want to give this regime or others the opportunity to say, well, you know, this isn't the problem with Maduro. This is the Yankees doing this. They're the cause of the problem. You've seen Maduro have some lame attempts at trying to do that already. So I think it's important for us to place responsibility for this catastrophe on Maduro's shoulders. He is the one who has caused it, and he's the one who's perpetuating it.
And General, let's go to Iran, which I've mentioned already. Has Secretary Mattis and President Trump and you decided on clear rules of engagement for when the Iranian ships approach our ships in the Gulf?
Yes, there are very clear rules of engagement.
And would it be surprising for us to have to sink one of those vessels very soon?
Well, our captains, our naval officers and leaders are strong leaders who are disciplined, and they will do everything they can to to advance our interest, to protect their sailors, and to defend themselves if necessary. And the president's made it very clear he will never question any of our military leaders if they take actions to defend themselves and their soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines.
Is the report correct that the president was out of the Iranian nuclear deal?
Well, the president, is more than skeptical about that deal. He calls it the worst deal ever. And in many ways, it was the worst deal ever because it rewarded the regime, gave them so much up front. And what happened is Iran began immediately to violate the spirit of that agreement, which was meant not only to prevent this horrible regime that has been victimizing so many people across the greater Middle East and beyond through their support for brutal proxy forces, their support for the Assad regime who gassed and murdered his own people in large numbers, the support for Hamas, the support for Hezbollah, and how that has created so much mayhem in the region for these Houthi rebels in Yemen, for example. A regime that has caused so much human suffering already. The intent was to prevent them from getting a nuclear weapon, but also then to get them to moderate their behavior. What the regime did is the opposite of that. They actually intensified their destabilizing behavior across the region. So the president's very strong about this when he says the main point we ought to focus on is that Iran has violated the spirit of this agreement. And so what we have done is we have crafted a strategy along with a lot of our like-minded nations, allies, partners, to counter Iran's destabilizing behavior, while we still aim to prevent, by whatever means is necessary to do so, Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon.
Now, I don't like the agreement. A lot of people don't like the agreement. The president doesn't like the agreement. But if we leave precipitously without a legitimate reason to do so, won't that undermine our ability to make other agreements in other places? Is that what's holding us in there, even though they're violating the spirit of it?
I think what's holding us in there right now is our determination as to the degree to which they are violating the letter of the agreement. And they have in the past, right? They had too much heavy water. They had too many centrifuges running. But when we go to the IAEA to enforce this agreement, they've taken remedial measures. But of course, what they're doing is they're stepping over that line. And we have to be very clear. And all the signatories to this have to be clear that if you violate the agreement, then there are going to be consequences. And we can't adhere to an agreement if the main party here, Iran, is violating it.
Next review is in 90 days. You think the president is going to stay in the agreement in 90 days?
Well, these reviews that come up every 90 days, these are internal reports to our Congress. And so they're really two separate issues. Do we certify that Iran is adhering to the deal? And we're looking very hard at their adherence to it with our partners and other signatories to the JCPOA, is what is called the Iran nuclear deal. And then there's also the question of whether or not you stay in the agreement based on violations.
Any prediction?
No predictions at all. I mean, we're not prejudging this. We're working hard at it every day, and we're working hard on it as part of a broader approach to the problem of Iran's destabilizing behavior, the humanitarian and political catastrophe they're helping to perpetuate, along with those others responsible, including ISIS and other terrorist groups in the region. But I think Iran is behaving in a way that you could say is aimed at keeping the Arab world perpetually weak and enmeshed in conflict, so they can use this chaotic environment in the Middle East to advance their hegemonic aims, their desire to dominate the region.
Should the Supreme Leader be surprised if the president withdraws from this agreement in the next 6 months?
Yeah, that's where they cut it. Do you see what I'm saying? It's all lies, whatever he's saying. Why don't they look into what's going on in America, where we had those IT workers stealing all the top secret information? Why don't we look into that? Those IT workers are connected to Hezbollah. What are they talking about? Take care of your own business here. They're talking about Iran. They already gave Iran all the money that Iran needed, thanks to Obama. Now they're talking about Iran. I mean, this is like sickening at this point. Take care of your own business and forget about what's going on elsewhere, because they do have the nuclear capacity. Iran does. They got all the secrets. They got all the nuclear warheads that they need from Obama. Believe me. So Mcmasters' interview puts to rest rumors of President Trump's incompetence. Yeah, why now they're not calling him incompetent? Because he has to go along with the deep state for the warmongering to take place. According to Mcmaster, the Afghanistan fight is going better than ever before, and it is in large part because of President Trump's leadership. Isn't it great to have a great leader in charge who knows how to win? Yet Trump knows how to win, but this is not winning. This is not winning what they're talking about. This is not winning. They put Trump in a position where he can't move. That's basically the bottom line. And it's going to go the way the deep state wants,